Good evening, folks. This is your weekly wake-up call. And today, Dave's going to talk about just exactly what our legislators do and what the qualifications are for their running and what their positions are not only about writing legislation. They have other tasks. So I'm going to turn it over to Dave.
So recently, Katie Porter stated that she's going to be running for Senate to replace Feinstein's seat. And immediately I started seeing on social media, on Twitter, well, what makes Katie Porter qualified? Why should she get that seat? What legislation has she actually written? What Katie Porter's role has primarily been is to be someone on oversight, to be a watchdog, which is pretty much why I didn't want her to run for president either. She has been on several caucuses, on several committees, and she has done research in regards to reform of the Postal Service. She's researched and investigated Louis DeJoy. She's researched issues on COVID-19. She's researched issues about natural resources, things that you normally wouldn't hear about, in order to gather data to see what kind of legislation is needed. One of the things that happened with Katie Porter is that she investigated how committee assignments were made, and she criticized some of the Democrats, namely Maxine Waters. And what happened was she was taken off one of her committee assignments. And also, it lost her a little bit of favor in regards to writing legislation, which is what she's going to need in order to write legislation if that's what she wants to do, which isn't really her primary goal. That isn't her thing. One other thing that I'll say is that Katie Porter was told she shouldn't be using visual aids by Maxine Waters, which is a little ridiculous. She's a Harvard law professor, okay? and she's highly qualified in the economy. So that's Katie Porter. And on the other end, we have the right wing. We have Jim Jordan, all right, who is demanding that the DOJ give him information in regards to the Joe Biden, the documents investigation and all of that stuff. Jim Jordan doesn't have a right to that, all right? He's not writing legislation in regards to that. It's an active investigation, and he has no right to it. So that's exactly what the DOJ said. Another thing is that I just saw this today, that in a recent interview, this is from Raw's Story, okay? David Edwards wrote it today, actually. James Comer he's a Republican from Kentucky. He was interviewed by Maria Bartiromo, who suggested that Biden's misuse of classified documents amounted to treason against the United States, which could mean his execution. We need to stop this, number one. But number two, Maria Bartiromo is not qualified to make that determination, is not qualified in terms of what is available to her.
The fucking talking head.
She's a talking head, okay?
She's a financial talking head, actually. That's where she came from, was the finance portion. Now she's a genius in constitutional law somehow. All right. If Donald Trump isn't punishable by treason, I assure you that Joe Biden isn't.
Right.
So she can shut the fuck up, essentially.
That's pretty much what I have. Listen, we're going to be talking more about qualifications in terms of competency, in terms of criminal record, in terms of behavior, whether you show up for work, what you do when you show up for work, whether you follow the rules. And as a general rule, the Republicans are much are much less likely to be qualified in most, if not all, of those categories. We understand that some Democrats are going to need oversight. Some Democrats are going to need to be censured or maybe even removed from office. But that is an outlier compared to what's going on now with 147
I can honestly
insurrectionist candidates.
Looking at all of these people in office, I can't see any Democrat right now that is worthy of being removed from office.
Right.
Not one. So here's what I'm going to say about Katie Porter in closing. Katie Porter has a role to play.
Yep.
Parties assign people certain tasks. I don't know what people are thinking, but if you take a look at a year's worth of legislation, not a lot of laws are passed in a year.
Right.
There's a lot of going back and forth between parties and between the individual parties themselves. So a woman's qualification to run for the Senate or a person's qualification to run for the Senate is not based on how much legislation she has written. She has co-sponsored a lot of bills. So let's make one thing straight, one thing clear. Would they be asking this question if this was a man running for Dianne Feinstein's seat? I don't really think so.
No.
So you know what? I'm not in the mood for this shit tonight. We're going to end this right here. Talk to you later.
All right.